What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com. Here are my DFS picks for NBA Wednesday, April 14th. These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos. In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's NBA slate. And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made. Okay guys, my voice is getting a little bit better, so thanks again for bearing with me and putting up with my voice in these videos. Really appreciate you guys coming back here every day, checking out my picks. So thanks so much. Okay guys, we have an 11 game slate tonight, so let's take a look at the point guard position. I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Elfrid Payton from the New York Knicks playing the New Orleans Pelicans, who have the 9th worst defense overall, and they give up the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing point guards. Elfrid Payton has averaged 22.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 26 minutes per game with a 23% usage rate. He scored 28, 19, and 14 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 27, 16, and 15 minutes. He's projected at 20.1 fantasy points here tonight, but he did get 27 minutes playing time last game, scored 28 fantasy points, so I think he can score 25 fantasy points or more here and get you 5 times value or more. He's $4,300 FanDuel salary and $300 less on DraftKings. And he scored 45, 33, and 29 fantasy points in his last 3 games versus the Pelicans. Vegas thinks there's going to be 220.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. If he can get you over 20 minutes here in this game, I think he's going to crush value. There is some risk to this play. He could go back to playing 15 minutes, and that would hurt. But I like Elfrid Payton as a high-risk, high-reward tournament play here versus the New Orleans Pelicans. Okay, another point guard that I like is De'Aaron Fox from the Sacramento Kings playing the Washington Wizards, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing point guards. De'Aaron Fox has averaged 42.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 35 minutes per game with a 31% usage rate. But he scored 58, 49, and 47 fantasy points in his last 3 games, playing 38, 39, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 44.2 fantasy points here tonight, but I think he can score 50 fantasy points or more and get you 5 times value or more. He's $9,600 FanDuel salary and the same price on DraftKings. He scored 52 fantasy points in his last game versus the Wizards, and Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. Fantastic matchup. So I like De'Aaron Fox here versus the Washington Wizards. Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you. Okay, let's take a look at the shooting guard position. I like Bradley Beal from the Washington Wizards playing the Sacramento Kings, who have the 4th worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Bradley Beal has averaged 44.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 35% usage rate. He scored 48 fantasy points last game, played 36 minutes with a 41% usage rate. He's projected at 42.7 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5 times value. He's $8,500 FanDuel salary and 200 more on DraftKings. So he scored 40 and 51 fantasy points in his last 2 games versus the Kings. And Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. He's playing plenty of minutes now, 36 minutes last game. So I like Bradley Beal here versus the Sacramento Kings. Okay, another shooting guard that I like. I'm going to give you a value play here. I like Isaac Okoro from the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Charlotte Hornets, who have the 7th worst defense overall, and they give up the absolute most fantasy points to opposing shooting guards. Isaac Okoro, he scored 30 fantasy points last game, played 29 minutes. Well, let's just start from the top. He's averaging 17.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 32 minutes per game with a 13% usage rate. He scored 30, 16, and 21 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 29, 26, and 35 minutes. He's projected at 21 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.3 times value. He's 4,000 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. He scored 20 fantasy points in his last game versus the Hornets. Vegas thinks there's going to be 213 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup, a fast-paced game. So I like Isaac Okoro here versus the Charlotte Hornets. Okay, let's take a look at the small forward position. I got another value play for you. I like Maurice Harkless from the Sacramento Kings playing the Washington Wizards, who have the 2nd worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing small forwards. Maurice Harkless, he scored 32 and 31 fantasy points in his last 2 games, playing 34 and 31 minutes. He's projected at 22 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.5 times value. He's 4,000 FanDuel salary and 300 less on DraftKings. So I like this pick because he's playing over 30 minutes a game now. His salary is still super low. I think he can score 25 fantasy points or more in this matchup and crush value on both sites. We know Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. So this is a good game to stack. Good way to get some low salary exposure to this game. Fantastic matchup. So I like Maurice Harkless here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, another small forward that I like is Kevin Porter Jr. from the Houston Rockets playing the Indiana Pacers, who have the 6th worst defense overall, and they're middle of the pack defending opposing small forwards. Kevin Porter Jr. has averaged 30.5 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 31 minutes per game with a 26% usage rate. He scored 51, 20, and 38 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 40, 33, and 30 minutes. He's projected at 31.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 4.9 times value. He's 6,500 FanDuel salary and 100 more on DraftKings. Vegas thinks there's going to be 233.5 points scored in this game, so I like Kevin Porter Jr. here versus the Indiana Pacers. Okay, who do we have at the power forward position? I'm going to give you another value play here. Lots of good value on this slate tonight. I like Daniel Tice from the Chicago Bulls playing the Orlando Magic, who have the 5th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing power forwards, Daniel Tice has averaged 21.8 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 24 minutes per game with a 15% usage rate. He scored 25 and 34 fantasy points in the last 2 games, playing 27 and 28 minutes. He's projected at 21.5 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.4 times value. He's 4,000 FanDuel salary, and he's 400 less on DraftKings. So I like that price on both sites, but especially on DraftKings. And he scored 35, 20, 26, and 30 fantasy points in his last 4 games versus the Magic. Vegas thinks there's going to be 220 points scored in this game. So I like Daniel Tice here versus the Orlando Magic. Real quick guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the position optimizer where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new player trends tool where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups. Okay, another power forward that I like. I know I've given you a lot of plays from this game, but I like Harrison Barnes from the Sacramento Kings playing the Washington Wizards, who have the second worst defense overall, and they give up the 6th most fantasy points to opposing power forwards. Harrison Barnes has averaged 30.4 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 36 minutes per game with a 17% usage rate. He scored 42, 20, and 21 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 42, 37, and 39 minutes. He's projected at 31.3 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.2 times value. He's 6,000 FanDuel salary, and he's 500 more on DraftKings. So he scored 38, 24, 29, 26, and 43 fantasy points in his last 5 games versus the Wizards. And we know Vegas thinks there's going to be 236.5 points scored in this game. So lots of fantasy points to go around. It's a fantastic matchup. It's a great game to stack. So I like Harrison Barnes here versus the Washington Wizards. Okay, moving on to the center position. I like Moses Brown from the Oklahoma City Thunder playing the Golden State Warriors, who have the 8th worst defense overall, and they give up the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing centers. Moses Brown has averaged 23.3 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 21 minutes per game with an 18% usage rate. He scored 37, 12, and 31 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 26, 19, and 31 minutes. He's projected at 26.5 fantasy points here tonight. Now on FanDuel, that's 5.6 times value because he's only 4,700 FanDuel salary, but he has 1,600 more on DraftKings. So I love that FanDuel price. Vegas thinks there's going to be 225 points scored in this game. It's a great matchup. So I like Moses Brown on FanDuel here versus the Golden State Warriors. Okay, another center that I like, I'm going to give you a stud pick here. I like Nikolai Vucevic from the Chicago Bulls playing the Orlando Magic, who have the 5th worst defense overall. And although they've been pretty good versus opposing centers, Nikolai Vucevic has averaged 46.6 fantasy points per game on the season, playing an average of 34 minutes per game with a 30% usage rate. He scored 49, 39, and 40 fantasy points in the last 3 games, playing 33, 27, and 36 minutes. He's projected at 46.1 fantasy points here tonight. That's 5.1 times value. He's 9,100 FanDuel salary, and he's 100 more on DraftKings. So Vegas thinks there's going to be 220 points scored in this game. So I like Nikolai Vucevic here versus the Orlando Magic. If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smickety smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.